welcome to today's Conquer Risk podcast. I'm excited for a couple of reasons. One is we have a new, well, not necessarily new. Jen's been on some of our podcasts before, but not just her and I. So I have Jennifer Burton. She is in charge of advisor experience, and she's been heading operations for, gosh, many years. Jen, when did you start with Potomac?
I started in 2007.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yep.
See, there's a reason you're smarter than I am. Anyway, hey, here's what we're going to talk about. This is the second thing I'm excited about is in our February Hot Takes podcast, we touched just briefly. One of the little bullets was about donor advised funds. And that's something that most, to be frank, most advisors, I don't think have any or very little experience with that situation. And so while we touched on it there, we also said, you know what, we realized pretty quickly this is worthy content of a full podcast. So we can dig in a little bit deeper because, again, anytime that we can help advisors become more educated, more experienced about a particular topic, then when that opportunity arises with a client, then boom, you're ready to help them out. So that's kind of where we're set and what we're going to talk about today, donor advised funds.
Yep, super exciting.
So anyway, I think it would be worthwhile to do just a quick flashback to what we talked about and what kind of set us up or teed us up from the other week. Right. Essentially, there was a report that came out, Fidelity and Schwab, both. I won't go into quite as many details as the other one, but in a nutshell, last year, both saw 30+% increase in charitable donations with their donor advised fund opportunities that they each have. Now, look, you may say, okay, well, up 30%, big deal. Look, that we're talking about well over $10 billion in donations through those services. So if we can make, or if there is an opportunity to help advisors not only direct traffic there, but put their clients in a better tax situation, as well as maybe even be compensated, seems like a pretty good gig. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I had never heard of it until we had an advisor ask us to research it, and just knowing that it was such a big opportunity out there, and the fact that it grew, last year, even in the midst of this pandemic, is interesting to me as well.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. We were all talking about it because we had an advisor ask us, and I was the only one that really had much experience with it. So I said, sure, let's try and take a look. And you and I worked together a bit to say, hey, okay, what's really out there? So we both started doing a little bit of research. What did you find in regards to donor advised fund options for us, for Potomac and our union advisors?
So the first thing I did was I reached out to our relationship manager at TD, and I said, where do I go from here? And he gave me the name of a company. It's called the American Endowment Foundation. Their website is aefonline.org. And I thought it was going to be a lot of red tape and super hard with the account opening and logistics. I reached out to the American Endowment Foundation and thinking that, okay, somebody's going to get back to me in a week. But they were super responsive. They set up a call that week. And anytime somebody's super responsive these days, it feels like a win to me. So right off the bat, I had a good impression of them. They have been around since 1993. They have $4.4 billion in advised funds. So it's something that has been going on for all this time, and I just never came across my desk, I guess. But they were very knowledgeable, very helpful, and TD recommended them.
Well, cool. That's one of the things that's important, right? Is first off, referrals, whether it be a client or a business entity. But I would agree with you 100% in that I spoke with someone completely different. But when I came, we were both making some phone calls, and then we wanted to meet in the middle and see what our response was. And this was very clearly a decent option. I had the same sort of scenario in that I called and had someone who not only was completely educated, but it was almost like they knew every question I was going to ask before I asked it. So the answers were not contrived. It was just they know their stuff. And for the record, I know, Jen, you can't see me right now, but in case anybody's flipping out, I did just change glasses. So, the camera's not playing funny games. I realized that I was I was fishing this morning with some, it was misty outside, and I had junk all over. I didn't even realize I had so much on my glasses until I started staring at the camera for a little while. I'm like, wait a minute. All right, so as we move on, let's talk a little bit about, since you're here, which is awesome, let's talk about some of the operational scenarios, right? You're in charge of operations, so that was part of the reason that you needed to be part of this. Tell me about, is like the account opening process the same for donor advised funds with AEF
It's a
as it is a
little
regular investment account?
It's a little different because you have this outside organization involved. So the process is that the advisor meets with the client and they fill out the AEF application. And that's all through DocuSign, which is lovely, especially in these times. And so once that account is established with AEF, then they work with us to establish the TD account, the account at TD. And just full disclosure, the only custodian I researched it at is TD, but I do know that they also have a relationship with Pershing, Schwab, and Fidelity, according to their website. So everything I'm going to say is going to be the TD process, but they are actually the client on the account at TD. In that initial paperwork process, part of that is a move money authorization form, and that links their account to the TD for money movement, which is a big part of this. So the client will have two accounts. They will have the TD account that can be managed in any way we see fit, or the advisor sees fit, with any of our strategies, any of our UMA strategies. Fees can be deducted as normal. And then they have a liquidity account that is held at American Endowment Foundation's PNC Bank account. They require 1% to be in there at all times for fees. They do take their own fees from that account, and they also use that for reserves for the contributions.
Okay, cool. So in regards to, let's say advisors' fees, right? Part of this gig is that it's kind of cool because advisors can be compensated for obviously you're providing value, you're providing an opportunity here that is better than cutting a check. So how does that work? What's the billing like for the investment account when you do that? The
billing piece is standard to any of our accounts. The advisor can choose what they want to charge, up until our 1.5%. Then it would have the strategy fee and the platform fee, just those three sections normal to any account. The advisor would get paid monthly.
Cool. So the investment account runs just like any other, and we can use, I this is part of our process, right? We can put any model combination together from our perspective that we would normally use for an IRA or a non-qualified account, whatever, right? Whatever is appropriate for that particular client, from the standpoint of they've donated these funds, and that's what we want to do. Now, one of the things that I think is pretty neat is the fact that, there's two accounts, so it's easier to split these up. And one of the things that we haven't really talked about, but AEF is doing, the real purpose is they're doing the administration, right? That's really what their role is in this picture, because they're doing some diligence, some validation that each entity that you request a donation to go to is actually a 501c3 charitable organization, right? That's part of the process. These are irrevocable trusts, right? That's what a donor advised fund is. So the account cannot be taken back by the donor, right? You have to give that money away, and then do the various donations that you want to do. So they're doing the administration. Do they charge their fees out of the liquidity account, or do they take those out of the actual investment account as well?
So that's a big purpose of the liquidity account that they require the 1% in. They take their fees directly from that. And when that draws down, they'll send a request to us as the manager to create more cash. And then that liquidity account also serves when you have a client, let's say John Smith wants to make a donation to the Humane Society, and any IRS eligible entity is is eligible. So John Smith tells AEF that he wants to donate money to the American Humane Society, and they send it immediately without even letting us know to create the cash. After that grant has been given, they tell us to create the cash and send it back over to the liquidity account. So there's not even a wait time for us to raise the cash and send it to their bank account. It's immediate.
Well, that's pretty sweet because they can see both accounts. They know there's money there, and they know that the donor can't take it back. So that's pretty sweet that they're that efficient to say, boom, there it is, and off the check goes, and then create the cash after the fact.
Yeah, and
one of the things go ahead.
Sorry, the other thing about the liquidity account is that the donor can always log in to a separate portal provided by AEF, and it's called Donor Central, and they can see their investment account and the liquidity account, and they can also grant access to their advisor if they don't want to take on the burden of making these grant requests. They can give access to their advisor to even do that for them.
It's pretty funny when you think about it. You're so charitable, you want to give money away, but you're also don't want to be bothered with saying, right, please just give the Humane Society some money.
Exactly.
But, hey, to each his own, right? I mean,
sure.
It may be something that and this is where there's an opportunity for a niche, right? One of the things that we always want to do is try and find opportunities to help advisors grow and become wiser or find a niche. And this is really one of them. And what I mean by that is in this example, right, why the client wants to assign it to the advisor. The client, if you're doing your marketing and so forth, the client thinks that you're doing these for other people as well. Maybe you only have one, but maybe you have multiple. And so you're going to be more efficient about doing things like, hey, going out and making sure that grant goes like it's supposed to. Whereas for them, they may only do this once a year when they're ready to do the grant, and they're going to forget how to do it. And so that, I mean, we chuckle about why they would want to assign it to the advisor as a responsibility, but that's really it. That they're looking to you as that's just one more value add.
Sure, sure.
And I think this is clear from some of the reports that I looked at. Is part of the reason I think this is important, right? Part of the reason I'm excited about this is that the higher up the net worth scale you go, the more charitable donations occur, and also the size of those increases pretty dramatically. And so, look, we all, as advisors, right, we all hope to have some sizable clients. Talk about an easy thing to focus on, do a little bit of marketing to, and even word of mouth, right? When you make something like this simple for a high net worth client, or even a what we'll call a normal client or average client, that's something they're going to talk about because everybody knows how to write a check. Well, except for Manish.
Yeah, no checks there.
That's by choice. Everybody knows how to do a check and give that check to a charitable organization. But when you have things like we had a client the other day we were working on with our advisor who has a lot of Apple stock. Well, if you work for Apple and you've got all this Apple stock, or Texas Instruments and you have a whole bunch of TI stock, you may want to donate the stock into this irrevocable trust, and then the liquidation can occur from there. All they're looking for is the money as the charitable organization, right? So why pay capital gains tax on this highly appreciated stock? Why not just donate it first, and then the liquidation occurs and you don't have that capital gain situation. So it's a much more efficient process, especially for the higher net worth folks, to be able to be efficient, be tax wise. And, what a cool setup, right? To have something to talk about with those other clientele and prospects.
Yeah, absolutely. And the tax piece of it, I think, is huge. I think that's a huge selling point. In your use case, when somebody has that Apple stock, doesn't want to pay the taxes, they are able to, grow the account tax free. They're able to have that deduction by donating the assets. And I'm sure a lot of this is for high net worth individuals, but something that really shocked me was that the minimum with American Endowment Foundation is only $10,000. So it's really anybody that is wants to give I feel like it's in that wheelhouse that they could do it. And I know this is only American Endowment Foundation, and I've heard that a lot of other donor advised fund companies have huge minimums, like 250.
Yeah, well, look, in my day, I'm an old fart, so in my day, I've seen donor advised fund scenarios where it's 2 million, 10 million, right? I mean, clearly you're dealing with very high net worth, ultra high net worth people when you're looking in that space, and part of the problem with the old school way of doing it was the donor didn't have any control over what was basically it was the donation. You make the donation, and then there it goes. What you're left with is kind of the hodgepodge of what everybody else has donated. You get this big amalgamation of stuff, and that's what is growing to be able to make future donations with. It was a little awkward personally. So I think the fact that you have some control over this is pretty cool, because in the end, right, let's say you put $100,000 in there and you're going to donate $100,000. Well, if you have an opportunity, you want to do maybe $10,000 a year, and so this is kind of a one-time grant, if you will, but it's going to happen over several years. Well, you have the opportunity to allow that to grow, right? And again, you don't have to worry about the taxes. Whereas if you just have your own money setting aside, and that's growing, and you're donating 10 grand a year from that, well, every time you're just creating more tax scenario for yourself.
Exactly.
So it's a pretty slick scenario. And I guess one of the other things I wanted to mention, I know you said you saw on their website that Fidelity and Schwab and TDA and Pershing were all there. I've talked to them about TDA and Pershing. I'm not sure if Fidelity and Schwab actually have access to AEF or vice versa, or if they were just referenced there as the fact that they have as part of a comparison. So definitely anybody who's listening, you have to do two things. One, you have to know what your scenario is, right? Are you your own RIA? Well, then you have a lot of freedom. Therefore, you talk to your own custodian that you do business with and see there, or better yet, just call AEF online. You can go to aefonline.org. Or also, if you're part of a broker dealer, you'll want to make sure I'm sure they have their own scenario, and hopefully they have access to somebody great like AEF. So anyway, there you go. That's kind of what we've got for the donor advised funds, the opportunities that are there, the reasons it's worthwhile working with an organization, let them do all the tax administration and so forth. We just think it's a really efficient model, and they were top notch to work with. So on that note, Jen, what do you got for recommendations?
So my recommendation, I put a lot of thought into this because this is my first one-on-one podcast, and I had so many
ideas.
Better be
good, baby. I know. Better be good.
I know. So I have a lot kind of saved up for the future. But the number one thing that I am going to recommend today is based on my I don't like shopping, and if I do shop for myself for clothes, I know it's awful. If I buy clothes for myself, I don't try it on. I go home, try it on, return it. It's not very efficient. And I have 3 daughters who are preteen, so they're more in tune with what I'm wearing. They get embarrassed when I leave in my yoga pants and baggy hoodies. So I signed up with Stitch Fix, and I really like it. They send you 5 items. You pay $20 for a stylist fee, which I have no style, so it's totally helpful on that front too. So they send you 5 items. You try them on. Whatever you don't like, you send back. All the shipping's free, and then you buy what you want. So I'm really look forward to me upping my style game here.
There you go. Well, you know what? You'll just have to up your style game and then start participating in more podcasts for us, because
that's right.
So that's my theory. Instead of me buying more clothes, I'll just have you do more podcasts instead of me. See that?
I used to only buy clothes when it was conference season.
Yeah, well, that's Manish gave me crap for a certain particular purple shirt that I wear. So just to spite him, I went out and got I even sent him this in a text the other day. I sent him a picture. I went out and found the manufacturer, because this purple shirt had a logo. I found the manufacturer. I went to Amazon, found the exact same shirt, different color combination, and I bought it. So next time me and I are on a podcast
You're
together,
dedicated.
if I've got that shirt by then, It was my favorite shirt. But anyway, I'll save that recommendation for that particular podcast so y'all know what it is. That said, I want to make a recommendation, and that is actually, interestingly enough, where I'm at right now, which is Fredericksburg, Texas. This is such a cool town. We've been here several times, and most people aren't going to be aware of, so big deal. What's Fredericksburg, Texas? It's basically in the middle of the hill country. Some refer to it. I refer to it as wine country. That's really what it is in Texas. Look, in this area, it's about, 60, 80 miles west of Austin, Texas. There are over 100 wineries in the area, and there are about 50 just in Fredericksburg alone. So a lot of these are very small, right? Kind of kitschy little boutique wineries. They're not trying to make mass market. They're not, it's not a California or an Oregon where they're trying to, make oodles and oodles of wine to ship everywhere under the sun. But there are like 50 tasting rooms in the area. And we're talking about a town of about 11,000 people. So think about that for a second. Like, everybody does wineries. And one of the things that also makes it cool to come here for like a little long weekend or something like that is that there are a bazillion bed and breakfasts around here. So don't come here thinking, look on your map first and going, oh, where's the nearest Hilton? I need an Archer hotel. Forget about it. Look, do your research, find a bed and breakfast here, and then just plan on. Look, there are winery tours, so you don't have to drive. There's shuttles. There's all kinds of things. But Grape Creek Winery is one of them that I happen to like here. But the reality is, right, you just go and try. It's just a neat little place, hometown-y kind of feel. Like I said, 11,000 people. All the buildings on Main Street are freaking ancient. And one more thing, Admiral Nimitz. I happen to be sort of fascinated with the World War II history scenario, all of the things around that. Admiral Nimitz was born here, and so they have there's a little on Main Street, this museum, and I went into it thinking, okay, here's this little museum, this will be kind of cute and whatever. Oh no, it opens up to like half a city block on the back end. Like, you have no idea there was this much there, and it was super cool. So highly recommend that if you come here. Make that one of your stops, especially if you have kids. It's a great history opportunity. So there you go, Fredericksburg, Texas, man. Who knew? Little town in the middle of Texas.
Is it warm enough to go to a winery in Texas right now?
It is. I mean, look, I'm wearing a jacket only because I just literally walked in from doing a little morning fishing before I start working. But in the scheme of things, it's up to 50s, 60s right now, and it's by the time we get to like mid-March, we've already had 75 here. Even after the nasty cold week, the very next week it got up to 75. So it's usually pretty nice. It just happens to be a little bit of a cold spell. So there you go. I mean, March, April, beautiful time to come here. It's not super hot. It's gorgeous. You can set out on a lot of these patios and so forth. Drink some wine you can't get anywhere else. I mean, who can do any better than that?
Nice. We should look at it for a conference. Sounds lovely.
That's not bad because it's just, like I said, it's an hour from Austin, and everybody can fly to Austin easy enough. So, all right. Well, on that note, we want to thank all of our subscribers, viewers, listeners, so forth. Click the dingy bell ringy thingy, subscribe, etc. Right? We really have fun doing these videos, and we are always up for content ideas, suggestions. We just appreciate the fact that we are working hard to try and provide some content for our advisors and so forth, and we're getting a lot of reviews, and it's really starting to explode on our YouTube channel and so forth. So, Jen, you got any parting notes?
No, thanks for having me.
All right, thanks. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Peace.